Chapter 1922, Bronze Pillars. Everyone agreed on their course of action and decided to head straight for the Demon's Eye. The ancient city was less than 100 kilometers away from the Demon's Eye, so Zhang Yi generously opened the dimensional gate to send them there. However, he played a little trick in the process. He limited the distance of each transfer to 3 kilometers. He couldn't be sure that they wouldn't become enemies in the future. So leaving a range of 1 kilometer for himself would give him an advantage in battle. The few who knew about this wouldn't mention it. Soon, they arrived near the huge desert pit. The Demon's Eye was located in the southwestern part of the Sahara Desert. It was a sunken valley that was reddish-brown in color. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a giant eyeball. This is how the Demon's Eye got its name. It was hard to imagine that this was a naturally formed terrain. The Demon's Eye was incredibly huge, with a diameter of 48 kilometers, which was the size of a small to medium-sized city. The dimensional gate opened, and everyone arrived at the edge of the Demon's Eye, overlooking this natural wonder. Zhang Yi stood on the edge of the Demon's Eye, staring down into the deep pit below. In a daze, he felt as if he was being watched by a god. This was an extremely dangerous place. Zhang Yi knew this very well, but he had no choice but to enter because it could save his life. It'll be fine. With my current strength, even if I encounter the Hades gatekeeper again, I'll be able to escape. Mammon was severely wounded by the 4 knights and fell into a deep sleep. As long as it doesn't attack, even if I encounter those so-called devil's apostles, they won't be able to take my life. Thinking of the countless layers of protection he had on him, Zhang Yi felt much more at ease. He looked at Olive and asked, "How are we going to get in? Just go straight down?" Zhang Yi pointed to the pupil below. This was not difficult for him. Olive did not answer, but looked at Odibio instead. "Chief Odibio, I'm counting on you for what comes next." Odibio held up the white bone scepter and walked to the edge of the abyss. He looked at Zhang Yi and extended his left hand, saying, "Mr. Chaos, please give me the sealing scepter. Only with it can we truly open the door to the sealed land." Zhang Yi didn't hold back, "Okay." He opened the dimensional gate, and soon, a huge bronze pillar poked its head out from inside. Boom! The bronze pillar fell into the desert and sank deep into it. Due to its enormous size, it slowly rose back up. Everyone else was curious about what kind of divine artifact this legendary Spear of Longinus was. But when they actually saw it, they were all stunned. Its size was beyond their imagination. Cardalus pointed at it and said to Olive, "You call this thing a spear?" Olive also had a blank look on his face, but this question brought him back to his senses. "You're asking me? It's like you've seen it before." This one sentence shut Cardalus up. Odibio also didn't expect this thing to be so huge, so it was no wonder that Zhang Yi didn't want to take it out at the time. Otherwise, even if the young people around him could carry it, they would have to carry a 200-meter-long bronze pillar on their shoulders wherever they went, which would be a huge hassle. Zhang Yi reached out, smiled at Odibio, and said, "Odibio, Chief, please." Odibio took a deep breath and slowly nodded. He walked barefoot through the sand to the Spear of Longinus, first raising his head to carefully examine this huge sealed object, then walking around it twice. Then he turned back and looked at his tribesmen. Immediately, 2 strong men with bare chests stepped forward from among the Aoshi tribe. Odibio took a sharp sword made of polished white bones from a cloth bag at his waist, raised it high, and without hesitation, stabbed it into his own chest. With a puff, blood splattered everywhere. He forced the white bones completely into his chest, then slashed open his chest with a screech. Shamanism has had a tradition of bloody sacrifices since ancient times, especially in primitive tribes in Fazhou, where this kind of violent sacrifice is even more revered. But what Odibio did next made all the so-called tough guys in the audience kneel down and call him Dad. After cutting open his chest, he broke his ribs, grabbed his heart with his big hands, and pulled it out of his chest. While doing this, he muttered incantations. Behind him, 2 burly men from the Aoshi clan did not hesitate for a moment, following his example and pulling out bone knives to cut open their own chests. Looking at their calm expressions, it seemed as if they were not in any pain at all. Everyone present had come from a sea of corpses and blood, so they did not vomit, but they did feel a chill run down their spines. Cardalus sucked in a breath of cold air and began to feel a little glad that he hadn't fought with these people just now. These were people who weren't afraid of death. Odibio, accompanied by 2 tribesmen, sprinkled their blood on the bronze pillars. They even deliberately inflicted pain on themselves, squeezing their internal organs so that blood and fragments of their internal organs hung from the bronze pillars. Yang Xinxin took the time to explain to Zhang Yi and the others. Human spirituality gradually diminishes with the development of civilization. Only through special stimulation can one unlock inspiration and communicate with higher spirits. Cognition becomes a shackle on inspiration. This is why people exhibit extraordinary strength during sleepwalking. Therefore, from ancient times, humanity's ancestors realized that they must stimulate their neural senses. By using hallucinogenic drugs and extreme pain to stimulate themselves, they could communicate with higher spirits. In fact, it was a way to connect with the ether. Odibio took out his heart, followed by his other internal organs and intestines, but he did not die. He continued until his chest was completely empty. It was hard to imagine that he was still alive. He muttered something, but the 2 burly men beside him completely lost their lives. Zhang Yi vaguely sensed that the bronze pillar had indeed undergone some subtle changes, invisible to the naked eye but perceptible to his 6th sense. Boom! After an unknown amount of time, the ground beneath their feet suddenly began to shake violently. Odibio recited the spell faster and faster, his eyes closed, as if he had completely entered another world. Zhang Yi subconsciously leaped into the air, afraid that some terrifying monster would emerge from the desert. Crack! In the next moment, the demon's eye beneath their feet cracked open. This was followed by a second crack, then a third. The sound of cracking became more and more intense, and all the mutants hurriedly moved away from the area. The members of the Aoshi clan surrounded Odibio and the bronze pillar, completely oblivious to the movements of the others. Puff! A massive rock suddenly shot into the air, and from beneath it, a white, cool water column erupted. Plop! 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 After the first water column erupted, the second, third, and fourth followed swiftly. These water columns were extremely thick and massive, white and transparent, resembling white jade pillars soaring thousands of meters into the sky. How can there be so much water here? Isn't this a desert? Fatty Sue's shocked voice rang out. Because the amount of water was so abnormal, the 48-kilometer diameter demon's eye was quickly submerged, and the water level was rapidly rising. In less than a minute, the huge pit was completely filled with clear water, which overflowed into the desert outside. When the demon's eye was completely filled with water and turned into a super huge lake, the turbulent water surface slowly began to move in a regular pattern. From Zhang Yi's high-altitude perspective, this scene was extremely strange. Because in the center of the lake, a huge whirlpool appeared. And that whirlpool gave people the feeling of a twisted eyeball. The desert has turned into a marsh. At this moment, Zhang Yi looked at Odibio, waiting for the old man to say what to do next. He saw him slowly and deliberately stuff the dirty organs back into his abdomen, as if nothing had happened. However, the 2 strong men of the Aoshi clan who had been used as sacrifices were indeed dead. The people here seemed to have a unique understanding of death and pain. Odibio walked towards the huge whirlpool and stood at its edge. He could feel the strong wind pulling at him, trying to swallow him into the huge abyss. He tugged at the animal skin on his body and shouted, "This is the passage to the sealed land. Do you guys dare to come with me?" Ha ha ha. He opened his mouth and laughed loudly, then spread his arms and jumped in without hesitation. The Aoshi clan members behind him followed suit and jumped into the vortex. What are we waiting for? Zhang Yi's right hand condensed a red demonic knife from divine refinement. With a weapon in hand, he felt confident. He first put away the spear of Longinus, then dove headfirst toward the vortex. It wasn't because he was brave, but because he wanted to follow closely behind the Aoshi clan elder. The dimensional gate opened, and he fell directly into the center of the vortex. The other mutant organizations were not afraid either, and they all entered the vortex from its edges. Tick, tick. After passing through the center of the vortex, they reappeared in an endless, dark place. Zhang Yi felt water under his feet, but not much, just enough to cover his calves, not reaching his knees. He immediately released everyone around him, and Liang Yu and the others appeared beside him. Yang Xinxin sat on Flower's back, followed by Blue Bird, Liang Yan. Zhang Yi turned his head and gave Deng Shintong a look. "Old Deng, it's your time to shine." Deng Shintong flicked his hair and smiled elegantly. "No problem. I came here for this very moment." He put his hands together, and a holy light suddenly burst forth from his body, expanding in all directions. But suddenly, his pupils contracted violently, and the rapidly expanding circle of light suddenly shrank back, only maintaining visibility within a range of less than 10 meters. "Something's wrong. There's something here that's devouring the light." "It's a familiar feeling," he looked at Zhang Yi. "It's the power of Mammon, controlling this place." Sin of greed, Mammon's power was to devour everything, including light. Zhang Yi had already witnessed his power back in Tianyu Palace. In a way, Zhang Yi even felt that his power of the void was very similar to Mammon's, and it was because of his inspiration that he created such a powerful ability as Sin of Blasphemy. He just didn't expect that even after being beaten into a deep sleep by the four angels, he would still be able to influence Deng Shintong's abilities. Visibility was low, and the surroundings were dark, giving people a feeling of unease. No one knew what was around them. Only the water beneath their feet made a dripping sound. Zhang Yi said nothing, but activated the bat system on his demon god armor. By emitting sound waves and using the echoes to confirm the presence of objects around him, the intelligent system formed images and transmitted them to his brain. This allowed him to roughly understand the surrounding scene, though it was naturally less clear than what he could see with his own eyes. However, at the moment, this was the only solution. "All right, old Deng. Don't try to spread your light any further, we don't want to alert them. Retract your abilities first." Zhang Yi looked around, like a tiger prowling in a new forest. The endless darkness made this little bit of light too conspicuous, which would easily attract something. In an environment like this, I always feel like something is going to jump out at us. Fatty Su formed armor out of frost and held a 9-pronged rake in his hand as he said worriedly. But soon, he said to Liang Yang beside him, "Don't worry, no matter what danger we encounter, I will protect you." Liang Yang knew how to be gentle. "Really? Chunlei, you're the best." A layer of fine goosebumps appeared on Zhang Yi's skin, and he shivered and silently pulled away from them. At this moment, the Aoshi clan approached, and other mutant organizations also arrived one after another. Zhang Yi reminded them, "Don't try to use light. There are restrictions on light here. If we can't illuminate the entire area, even a little bit of light will make us targets in the dark." The others tried it and found that it was indeed true. "But we can't see anything here. Where should we go? We're like headless flies right now." Cardalus' voice was not loud, but everyone could hear him. Olive looked at Zhang Yi, "Then it's up to His Excellency Chaos. As the most powerful space ability user among humans, your ability allows you to sense your surroundings to the maximum extent. We need you to find a way out." Zhang Yi didn't expect this trouble to fall on his head, but it didn't matter. "Okay." He closed his eyes and expanded his spiritual domain. With himself as the center, he could see all the spatial fluctuations within a 5-kilometer radius. However, all he saw was a vast, empty world with water beneath his feet and nothing above him. "I can't sense anything. This place is too empty. As a sealed area, I'm afraid I won't be able to find a way out in a short time on my own," Zhang Yi said honestly. At this moment, Sharon, the leader of the Fremons, said, "In that case, let's use some technology." As he spoke, several soldiers from Abel's troops behind him stepped forward and took heavy metal boxes from their backs. They opened the boxes, and hundreds of black insects flew out. Zhang Yi could hear the sound of their wings flapping. Looking closely, he realized that these were not ordinary insects, but mechanical insects. To be precise, they were small insect-shaped drones. Moreover, due to their small size, they were not easily detected by the Netherwalkers, making them safer. "Just release them to scout the area," Sharon said with a smile. Abel's soldiers had already maneuvered the drone swarm, which flew off in all directions. They seemed to be very experienced in exploring such dark depths, so they immediately came up with a plan. Zhang Yi thought to himself, "I've learned something new. Next, we'd better not make any rash moves. Let's wait for the drones to send back information first." Sharon hadn't finished speaking when he stopped abruptly. This was because everyone heard a loud noise coming from all directions. "Be careful," Olive warned, already drawing his holy sword. He crossed the cross-shaped blade and guard in front of his chest and prayed. Immediately, flames rose from the tip of his sword. The golden holy flames carried an inviolable majesty. Not far away, thunder roared, and Odin, the Nordic god of war, also displayed his abilities as the lance rider. An 8-winged Pegasus made of thunder and lightning appeared beneath him, covered in silver thunder armor, and he held the eternal spear tightly in his hand, shining in all directions, but it was quickly compressed into a small space by the boundless darkness. Fatty Sue swallowed hard and hurriedly used his bat vision to observe his surroundings. In the boundless darkness, the most terrifying thing was not the feeling that something was approaching, but the fact that he couldn't sense anything and had to wait for the unknown to appear. He mustered up his courage and tried to comfort Li Yang beside him. Yang, don't be afraid, I'm here. If anything wants to hurt you, it'll have to get past me first." As Fatty Sue was talking, he was busy looking into the distance. When he turned back to look at Li Yang beside him, he found that she was gone. Fatty Sue was startled. He looked around and suddenly realized that there was no one around him. His heart sank, and he shouted, Yang, boss, Uncle Yu, where are you all? Damn it, I'm not being tricked by an illusion, am I? Zhang Yi's cold voice came from below. Speak properly, why are you standing so high? Upon hearing this, Fatty Sue subconsciously looked down and realized that he had been lifted into the air by something. Everyone else looked at him with serious and puzzled expressions. Come down, Zhang Yi shouted. Fatty Sue didn't hesitate for a moment and quickly jumped forward. It wasn't until he landed that he could see what it was. The water beneath their feet wasn't deep, but where he had been standing, a huge bronze pillar had risen silently. This bronze pillar looked very familiar. It looked exactly like the spear of Longinus that Zhang Yi had stored in his dimensional space, and it was about the same size and thickness. Everyone, be careful. I don't know what this thing is. Zhang Yi gripped the demonic knife in his hand tightly and used his spiritual domain to observe his surroundings. Trouble is coming. Only he knew how big the trouble was. Boom! More and more bronze pillars appeared under their feet. 1, 2, 10, dozens. Within their limited field of vision, they could see dense bronze pillars almost filling the entire space. Boom! They continued to grow upward, becoming longer and longer, forming a huge bronze forest. The bronze pillars rotated and began to move at a steady pace, dazzling the eyes. Is this a trap of a sealed land? Odin said. No one could give him an answer, but since it was the sealed land, how could Mammon, who was sealed, set up a trap? Could it be a trap built by the Netherwalkers who were voluntarily corrupted by his power? But according to the Aoshi clan, the Netherwalkers' civilization was extremely backward, comparable to theirs. Could these bronze pillars have been built by them? It was hard to imagine that this was the work of a backward civilization. Let me test the quality of these bronze pillars. Everyone present was among the strongest in the world, so of course they would not shy away from a challenge. Odin was the first to move. A terrifying thunderbolt gathered in his right hand, and a huge thunder spear whistled in his hand. He raised his head, aimed at the forest of bronze pillars in front of him, and threw it with all his might. The thunder spear broke through the air with a thunderous roar, cutting through the sky in an instant and hitting one of the bronze pillars. The result made everyone's pupils contract. Odin, a bishop-level warrior, struck with all his might, but the terrifying thunder spear did not cause any damage to the bronze pillar. Instead, it silently turned into specks of light and disappeared. What is this material? Odin frowned, but he did not panic too much. They had dealt with prehistoric civilizations before and knew that there were materials that could block supernatural energy. Zhang Yi's Tianhai fortress contained barrier stone material. Clearly, the bronze pillars were even more resistant to supernatural powers than barrier stone. As if stimulated by the thunder spear, the huge bronze formation underwent a drastic change. All the bronze pillars suddenly sped up and moved closer to the group. Boom! Zhang Yi suddenly shouted, "Enhancement and beast-type mutants, go to the top. Supernatural powers are ineffective, so try to block them with your bodies first. This thing is evil. Use weapons and don't let it touch you directly." Lu Karen directly activated her tower mode and drove the snow owl to block the left side of the team, while Flower remained in his second form, more than 20 meters long, blocking the right side. Uncle Yu and Liang Yu were at the rear. At the front was Zhang Yi, who was equipped with demon god armor and had very strong close combat abilities.